Hello, everybody. Welcome to Loop and Learn's T1D speaker series. Interesting presentation today by Greg Badros, all about an app he developed called Gluroo. And his tagline that I've seen places is diabetes logging app that makes managing diabetes as easy as messaging. And we all know we can do that. So we're very fortunate to have this presentation. I think you'll find it fascinating. We'll do our disclaimer as we normally do. The Loop app is a do-it-yourself closed loop algorithm. This presentation is provided to share tools available to you in the DIY community and assist you in making your own decisions in consultation with your own healthcare professionals regarding your diabetes self-management, and you take full responsibility for building and running the system. You do so at your own risk. Please bookmark loopandlearn.org. There's a lot of information coming out now, particularly now as there are a lot of changes in the paid services and Nightscout and iOS and new cell phones. A lot of information you want to keep up to date. And if you don't bookmark it, at least sign up for the newsletter. We send out newsletters almost every week now because there's so much important news that you need to know. And there's some hot tips that you really want to pay attention to. So let's talk about Gluroo. I don't want to take a lot of time here, but according to Greg and things we've discussed, it was inspired by the simplicity of group messaging, which you're all familiar with now. It's just like texting, and it's quite a comprehensive diabetes management platform now. Greg is a T1D dad whose 10-year-old son was diagnosed in February 2020. That's a tough timing. That was the beginning of COVID. And he realized that that diabetes is best handled as a team sport. And he knew that he could build something better than what was available on the market. And then Gluroo was born that August. He works fast. He's a smart guy. He has a BS in math and computer science and a PhD and MS in computer science and engineering. A career in high tech with Microsoft and Google and Facebook, and he's now the CEO for Gluroo. And he used the term dog fooding, which I had to look up, and you might hear that tonight. Dog fooding is the practice of using one's
listening to this, Robin.
Really interesting, and I think you'll enjoy this presentation. I'm going to stop the share here and turn this over to you, Greg. Thank you so very much for being here, and take it away. It's yours.
Great. Thanks everybody for staying muted, unless you're asking a question. Let's see. So I am going to share my screen so you get a slightly better rendering from Zoom. Hopefully it will look better, but you can tell me if it doesn't look better, and I can go back to just sharing my camera. How's that look to everybody? Give me a thumbs up.
Looks good.
Okay, good. All right, so so my name's Greg. I'm the founder of Gluroo, and we've been building this for about 2 years now. It's important to note that even though I am here, I'm not the only person who's worked on Gluroo. I just have the privilege of talking to you today. So a bunch of us have worked on it over the last 2+ years. Our designer, data scientist, and chief medical advisor, we all are impacted by diabetes every day. You guys may know Dr. Rehan Lal from Stanford, who is our chief medical advisor, and he's probably set up as many people with Loop as anybody in the world. So we're lucky to have him. But this is the team over the time. And of course, the most important, most valuable players are my son, who was 7 when he was diagnosed, and my wife, Jenny, who've been partners in testing everything that we've done and have contributed all kinds of ideas. And it's my son where the story starts back in February of 2020. As Joanne mentioned, at the start of the pandemic, he wasn't feeling great, went in and finger pricked a 481 with his PCP. We headed to the Stanford ER and learned about diabetes really fast. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our history with therapy, what we did over the years, because it really informed GluRoo. The best kind of treatment, the best supported features of GluRoo always were whatever we were doing in the early days. And so we evolved GluRoo along with the therapy that he was using. So, for the first 5 months or so, we were just learning the basics. We did get a CGM right away. We were doing MDI with syringes first and then pens, and really drinking from the fire hose, thinking a lot about how to manage diabetes. I did a project then very early on, where I figured out how to reverse engineer a clock radio that projected on the ceiling and made the pretend temperature outside match his blood glucose number, so that 11.3 degrees Fahrenheit on my bedroom ceiling meant 113 micrograms per deciliter, using the Dexcom Follow APIs to get that number. I think we were using Sugarmate at the time as well. So that was one of my first hacks. But after about 5-6 months, I was done thinking and really realized that I needed to start writing. I started writing up some of the ideas and started writing some code. And that was the beginning of GluRoo. So in August of 2020, I built a prototype one weekend and founded the company a week later, after believing that there was something important here that I could do and a way that I could help. So we stayed on MDI until January of 2021, when we switched to the Omnipod Dash system, the fourth generation system from Insulet, in January of 21. We had the app out in test flight and the Google Beta Play Store just a little bit later in 2021. In June, and we'd been using iOS for everything up till that point. In June, I switched our son to a full Android smartwatch. That meant that he didn't need his phone at all. He only had to wear this watch and use his PDM for bolusing. And so that was Android, and we did that for a while in June. Finally, and then we had that Healthline coverage in December of 21. We did a little marketing push around there and got a whole bunch of people on our wait list at that point. And finally, in 2022, Rehan, our medical advisor, finally convinced me to try DIY Loop using the Dash Pod support. I always thought that the Riley link and the Orange links were a bit too janky for my tastes, but as the development branch had gotten good enough with the Dash pods that we were using anyway, it was an easy thing to try, and we did. And so we built the DIY Loop integration. And this, of course, got us back to iOS. Of course, just a couple months after using DIY, the Omnipod 5 that we'd been waiting for finally came out. So we decided to give that a try. That switched us back to Android and a Samsung phone. I did a Diabetes Mind D-Data talk in June before the ADA conference in New Orleans. And then we finally got it in both app stores in July. So over this time, there's two things I want you to remember about this. One is we were switching back and forth between Android and iOS based on what other technologies were available to us. And two, we really, a lot of the testing of GluRoo in the early days, when there were just a dozen or so people using it, a whole lot of the testing was whatever therapy we were doing. So the things that we were using are the things that really work very, very well in GluRoo, because it's only been in the last 2 months that we've been getting a lot of feedback from the community. So I'm going to tell a bit more about the product by going through some motivating observations that we had early on. And the first observation is that diabetes impacts all of us. Even though it was my son who had the disease, it was clear from the very beginning that it was a team sport. And we were managing his care as a group, right? It wasn't just for him to manage. This is what GluRoo looks like as you're setting up what we call your GluCrew, the set of people that are working together to support the team. So as you onboard, you kind of can scan a QR code from one phone to the other. There's an Android phone on the left, iPhone on the right. You just then log in with whatever Apple or Google credential you want, and now you're in the GluCrew and you have access to all the same information as everybody else in the GluCrew. It works via email too, but it's not as fun to demo. Second observation follows sort of from the first and is underscored by that timeline I shared, the timeline of care. We switch back and forth between Android and iPhones based on products and our approach to managing diabetes at the time. So flexibility of platform really is essential. And Gluroo is cross-platform. We support iOS, Android, and the web, all three. And when I say cross-platform, it's not just that it's a single app that can run on any of these things. Again, it's designed for a team of caregivers. If mom has a Pixel 4, dad has a Samsung Galaxy phone, and kiddo's using an iPhone 8, that's fine. It all works. Your healthcare practitioner can be using the web interface on a laptop or an iPad, right? It all works seamlessly. The third observation is based on one of the emergent behaviors we had early on after the diagnosis. My wife and I found that we were using Facebook Messenger as a log of diabetes events. So we would use shorthand, like we would type things like 1SB 5 minutes ago, and that would mean that Jack's had a single starburst as an intervention snack, right? And so we were doing that, and as I started to talk to people, trying to, figure out what the product really should be in the world, we found that we were definitely not alone. Coordination of diabetes, especially for care of people that need assistance or supervision, like kids, it happens via messaging, right? This was something I saw everywhere. So Gluroo is built as a group messaging app, and it's not a logging app. But our secret sauce is the Gluroo. The Gluroo is this all-knowing, never forgets kangaroo that tracks everything relevant for diabetes care. He's following along with everything you do. This is where sometimes I get the question, huh? Like, why a kangaroo? What exactly? Well, it does make sense, and I'll explain it. So while I was earning my PhD, I did spend 3 months down under studying at Monash University near Melbourne, Australia. So I do have a certain appreciation for kangaroos. They're cute, and they're strong, assertive animals. They're great animal, great model, great role model. But originally, Gluroo was a play on the word guru. Right, so we started with guru.
For a minute, I forget. I knew there was.
You mind muting? Thank you. We started with guru, and I tried to change it to Gluroo, spelled like this, Gluru. And when I asked my kids how to spell it, they spelled it like this. And once I saw it written like that, I was like, oh, that reminds me of a kangaroo. And my wife had the same reaction, and that was how the name and the logo came to be. So Gluroo with 2 O's. The domain was cheaper too, so that was a plus. It was less expensive to buy that host name. The fourth and final observation I'll mention is that diabetes is a system problem. At its heart, it's really about keeping a complex biological system in balance, as you guys well know. And when multiple people work together to manage balance in a complex system, sharing state is the name of the game. You got to do it well, you got to do it in real time. And that state synchronization is a fundamental part of what Gluroo does and how it differentiates itself. Now, I didn't introduce myself too well. Joanne gave a little bit of a background. When I first retired from Facebook, I started a consulting firm, and I made these business cards, kind of anachronistic. They were paper business cards in 2013 or so. But the ribbon along the right edge kind of reflected the history of my career. So I was at Duke for 4 years doing math and computer science and almost psychology as a third major. University of Washington, near where I had interned at Microsoft for 4 years for grad school. And then I worked at Google for a little over 6 years, and I worked at Facebook for a little over 4 years. And what's important about those times is that I was responsible for the Gmail team for part of my time at Google, and I was responsible for a bunch of things at Facebook, including Messenger for part of my time there. And those experiences certainly inspired Gluroo. So what is Gluroo? Okay, Well, when we got our first press coverage, the headline was this: the simplest and yet most comprehensive diabetes tool. And this is a dream headline for a product manager, right? The holy grail of designing a product is to handle everything it needs to while still remaining simple. Normally, simple and comprehensive are kind of a pick one proposition. You can't have both. But while I was delighted by this headline, I wasn't surprised, because that was part of the strategy from early on. Simple was the plan. And the way that we thought we would get there, and we think we've succeeded, but the way that we thought that we would get there was just by telling people, look, swap in Gluroo for your messaging app. You were using WeChat or you were using iMessage to talk among the people that care about the person with diabetes. Just use Gluroo as a replacement. If you're going to talk about diabetes, open up Gluroo. If you're going to chat with your other friends, open up your other app. It's fine. Swap in Gluroo, and it works like a messaging app. And we had to nail basic messaging 110% for this simple claim to hold. But we think that we did. I've helped teams do it before, and we could do it. So this is ending up what Gluroo looks like.
Gluroo, the collaborative diabetes logger that works like a chat app. A mother uses Gluroo on her Android phone to text with her daughter Anna, who has diabetes. Anna responds back from her iPhone to share details of her dinner with her mom and her whole GluCrew. The app understands Anna and updates to 65 grams of carbs now on board on everyone's phone. There's also a simple tap to enter UI that we'll highlight in another video. The conversation continues, and Anna logs her bolus insulin from 15 minutes earlier. So that log entry inserts at 7:20 p.m. and is added to the 0.3 units remaining from a bolus Gluroo is tracking from earlier in the day. Each entry gets saved with her current blood glucose level from her CGM. Gluroo. Worry less, live life more.
And that was our first teaser promotional video from back in December of 21, maybe late November, early December. The video shows things further along, but one of the first things that I layered on top of basic messaging was recording not just the timestamp, but also the blood glucose level of the person with diabetes. So here you can see along the right edge, at 12:31, my son was 68 with a flat trend line, and 15 minutes later, he was 49 trending down, and therefore logged some juice and took some juice, had some juice, right? So if you think, what's the obvious thing if you're managing a person with diabetes and you're chatting about them? That's context that you want with every single message sent and received. So that's what we put in there. Now, while messaging does help make the product feel simple upon first use, what Clayton Christensen called an extensible core, I had a strong conviction that it was also the right metaphor. Fundamentally, I believe that managing diabetes is about tracking and communicating the state of all things that influence blood sugar. So we didn't want to build around the log. The logs are stale and isolating notions, right? Messaging, especially when there are other people involved in the process of care, evokes a sense of audience, and it helps trigger our innate sense of being social and satisfies our social need to connect and communicate with others as we're tracking those relevant events. It makes it more motivating, more inspiring to do this work and this tedium around managing this condition. The lesson that having an audience increases engagement is something that was proven by Mark and my colleagues at Facebook, and by Jack and his teams at Twitter, and again by other companies like Gluroo that have copied those models since the social networking explosion in the late noughts. It is a fundamental part of how Gluroo works. Now, the second part, being comprehensive, that's trickier to get right, especially while maintaining simplicity. And there's a fundamental rule that I teach junior product folks on my team, is that your solution really needs to be 10x better than an entrenched alternative if you want people to change, want people to switch. So Gluroo needed to handle a lot of the tedium and workflows in managing diabetes. The key to making Gluroo more useful is that way that kangaroo listens in and the way that it understands what you're messaging. So when you type something like dose 2U for 45G, That's not just a message that everybody gets to see. GluCrew actually understands that that means 2 units of insulin were injected, put on board, and it knows that you'll have that in your system for 3.5 to 4 hours. And it also understands and is able to estimate an activity curve for the carb absorption of the 45 grams of carbs that you're announcing. Okay, and it can model those things for you, kind of like the way Loop does with, a bolus that it gives you after you've announced some food. In some ways, GluCrew is like the pump for people that aren't using a pump, although we'll see it also integrates nicely with pumps. Now, it does this through a natural language processing engine, or NLP engine. It's pretty powerful, and I'll talk more about it in a second. But for those of you who are going to glaze over when I talk about NLP and texting and language understanding and stuff like that, know that we also have a very simple to use tap to enter messaging solution as well. And they actually work hand in hand to help train you how to type these things, or you can use the action bar with the plus button if you want. I'll come back to the plus bar. I'm going to talk about the NLP stuff first. So this is what it looks like if you're trying to log insulin or food. On the left is a bunch of insulin bolus announcements and basal announcements. Any of these will work, as do a bunch of other variants. And on the right is a bunch of meal announcements. In each case, I was uninspired and just was always announcing 45 grams of something. Okay, so it's that easy. That's all you have to type. You literally can just type 45G to tell the system that there's going to be 45 grams of food being eaten, right? For speedy logging, it doesn't get much faster than that. For logging a low intervention, we copied the 1SB that Ginny and I would text each other back on Facebook Messenger. You can spell it out, you can write SB. Turns out that this is one of the important places where we allowed customization early on. Different families have different go-to intervention snacks, whether it's glucose tabs or whatever. So you can customize, and the language understanding will understand your terms as well, whatever you want them to be. You can log finger pricks. We integrate with the sensor beautifully, works great, but sometimes your sensor doesn't work. Sometimes you're double checking the sensor, so you can log finger pricks. Another of these GluCrew specific settings is whether you're going to record in milligrams per deciliter or millimoles per liter. And logging exercise looks something like this. We kind of key off of the duration and a level of strenuousness, like medium or low or hard, to describe the exercise. Logging new devices is an interesting one. We understand things like new sensor. You can record the lot number of the sensor, the code if you are into restarting your Dexcom sensors. You record a new site, like when you're changing your infusion site or a patch pump. New transmitter, to record the transmitter in case you need to do something with the transmitter while it's still on a sensor and need the number written down. And in fact, new devices are so important, we made it work even better. Here I'm putting on a new sensor and want to record the lot number and code number, and it's done. Using the camera, we QR scanned those things faster than I could explain what the heck I was doing. It's that easy. Now, you saw in my motivating text with Ginny 1 starburst 5 minutes ago, and GluCrew supports things like that. So by default, when you log something, when you are logging something is the time that the entry is associated with. But oftentimes your entry time and the time of the action aren't actually one and the same. So our NLP engine understands relative and absolute times. And so a relative time in the past, you'd say something like 15 M ago or 15 minutes ago, or new sensor 2 hours ago. So this, if it's, it's 5:30 for me now, if I type this in now, it would record it at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, right? It would show in the history of the log. Trying to record something in the future, you can type in 15 minutes. If you're like planning to eat, maybe you're bolusing now and plan to eat in 15 minutes so that you've pre-bolused, so that the insulin activity curve and the carb activity curve match up better. Or you know that you're going to take a starburst, but it's not right now. Maybe you want to be really precise and record that it's 2 minutes from now. You can also record an exact time, 45 grams at 12, 45 grams at 9:40 a.m., whatever, yesterday, Monday. If you record a day of the week, it assumes you're going backwards, because going multiple days forward in time isn't a lot of use. seems obviously useful to log the backward facing stuff, but again, logging forward, you wouldn't necessarily want to go 2 days in the future, but I do go 1 day later in the future all the time. So for example, every school morning, I enter my son's anticipated lunch at his planned lunchtime before he ever even leaves the house. So I'll pre-announce his 62-gram cheese pizza at 12:20 p.m., and that lets GluCrew provide a reminder 15 minutes in advance so that he can remember to pre-ball us for that meal. It works great. Now I mentioned, even though messaging is simple, some of what I explained is more complicated extension of that core idea, and we provide a couple different ways, a couple different kinds of help along the way to help you learn. First off, there's real-time feedback on what the NLP engine thinks that you're saying. So in this video, watch first for the fork and knife indicating that GluCrew understands it's a meal announcement, and then watch the clock show up just to the right of where I'm typing, right there. That clock shows up to tell you that it's understood a time, and the fork and knife show that it's a meal. Does seem worthy of a celebration, doesn't it? We added that in recently to make it a little bit more fun every time our son enters a structured entry, and our users, especially younger kids, love that. The second way that we make training a little easier, make learning how to do this a little easier, is these training tips. So it's hard to read in the bottom because it's faded out due to the modal dialogue that's popped up. But I had just typed in, did you have 2 starbursts? So when that happens, the first time that happens, we pop up an explanation saying, hey, we don't treat that as an announcement of 2 starbursts, because that was a question, right? And we asked you to confirm that you understand, and then you can go about your time. This only happens the first time that you do it, but it helps you learn how different features interact with the system. Now, the reason that we care about the fidelity and correctness of this logging is because we believe that the information in the logs can be very useful. We've talked about the benefits of communicating among the GluCrew, but for example, the sensor changes that we've shown you before, they can come in really handy later on. One of our most popular features is the way that we automate the reporting of a failed sensor. So you can just pull down the devices tab in the drop-down status, and you can see your sensor information, what code you entered, what lot you scanned off of the QR code, and just tap report. It opens up the Dexcom form, pre-fills everything with the information that you need, and Dexcom willing, you'll have a new sensor shipped to you in 6 seconds flat. You at least won't have to spend more than 6 seconds on it. They might take a day or two. This is great. I used to collect all the failed sensors and file 4 of them at a time because it just took too long. Now, I showed you the use of your camera for scanning QR codes and supplies, but sending photos is a really popular part of ordinary messaging. When I was working at Facebook, we all knew that the day every year that we had the most engagement from the Facebook community was the day after Halloween. Everybody was checking their friends' photos from the festivities of the prior night. GluCrew supports photos too. You simply tap that button in the bottom left there, and it opens up your camera viewfinder, and you take a picture. You can type in some notes if you want, or just send it. If you don't type in any notes, we make it easy to tag. We're running it through some image processing. We can recognize that it may be popcorn. You can tag popcorn and add that to the log, and it shows up on everybody's phone in real time, live. Okay? If you want, instead, you can scan the UPC code, and we recognize that UPC code we should recognize that the UPC code is popcorn, and here it is, there it is, and you can send that, and it again shows up on both sides in a jiffy. The next feature I'll quickly highlight is inspired by my time at Google, which of course is synonymous with search. So one of the big benefits of a good record of historical behavior is to learn from our past so we can do better the next time. You can argue that this is what the entire discipline of history is about. So GluCrew makes it easy to say search for sushi. So we tap that search button in the top left, we type in our search term, hit the button, and now our GluRoo event log is just sushi. Shows the pictures from the past. See, there's from September, there's from October 4th, there's from May 8th. You can open up inline charting to see how well you did guesstimating your carbs and how well the insulin you bolused covered your carbs and so forth, so that maybe next time you give a little bit more or get a little bit less, trying to make it easier for everybody involved. Now, I promised saying a little bit more about tap-based logging. Typing logs is great once you get the hang of it, but sometimes a guided approach is easy, especially when you're learning. So we support tap-based logging too. The plus button there in the bottom left gets you started. And here we see Susie adding a carb entry. She's easily able to see and choose from recent meals. She can enter something new with as much or as little detail as she wants. And here's an example of her using a plus menu to enter an exercise. Right? She enters a duration with a couple taps and then provides extra details so that she and GluCrew can better understand how tennis with Bob, it looks like, affects her glucose levels. Right? That's the tap to enter UI. Here's a closer look, or a longer look at least, of the action menu. You can see in the top right there, the bolus and basal insulin is represented throughout GluCrew in shades of blue, and carbs are represented in shades of goldenrod and brown, yellowish, brownish goldenrod, right? Exercise is always that purple kind of color, and blood glucose is green or an alert color. Now, of course, no one's going to get everything right the first time they log something, so you can update and edit the log however you need to. We can select the message here by just long pressing on it, and you can update the text however you want. Here we're fixing a typo. Or on another message, we can just, if we want to change the time of that other message, we just swipe left, and that moved that time, that message to an earlier time. Okay, and we record that it happened 15 minutes earlier. Any member of the GluCrew can edit and remove messages, and again, it's immediately synchronized across both of those devices, that iPhone on the right and that Android phone on the left, that different people have in their pockets. It's just as important to understand that state synchronization that's happening isn't just for messages. Here, Sweetie on the left is looking at her GluCrew member list, while her mom on the right edits her profile to set her preferred name to Terry. Watch the left after the right iPhone changes. You'll see it update there. See, now it's Terry. Her name updates on her child's phone just a moment after Terry finishes her edit. All of the shared state, not just messaging, all of the shared state in GluCrew works just like this. Now, if a device becomes disconnected so that the state is not being synchronized, we call attention to that fact. No internet connection, no network connection is perfect. And it's important to understand that you may be looking at stale data. So we make that situation very clear. GluCrew isn't for making medical decisions, but we do want to make sure folks understand when what they're looking at isn't the most recent data. Now, I have an annoying alert going off somewhere else. That is an X-strip alert, because GluCrew alerts don't bother you. We don't have alerts. I'll get to that. Integrations. So no one's going to double enter logs. Okay, if you've typed in what you're eating to your OP5, you don't want to enter your bolus also. Hang on. Trying to figure out where that sound is coming from. You don't want to enter that in GluCrew again. Okay, so with the help of the community, we've been updating our integrations. And as I've shown you before, we already integrate with the G6 and the Libre 3. We also integrate with pumps, such as a bunch of open source tools like Loop, Android APS, Nightscout. We'll talk more about those in a minute. And a couple commercial solutions. We're not affiliated with any of these folks, but we work with the Dash system and the Omnipod 5 system from Insulet. Okay, so first one I'll talk about is Nightscout. It's a popular one. A lot of open source tools, including DIY Loop, use Nightscout. We support Nightscout by letting you just point GluCrew at a Nightscout backend, and everything you enter in GluCrew gets copied into that Nightscout backend, just like DIY Loop. You can point it at a Nightscout backend, and then you can use that to show your doctor, okay, here's my Nightscout reports, and it'll show all of the stuff that you entered in Gluroo. We think that Gluroo is the fastest way to enter stuff, especially if you're not using DIY Loop and you're just doing MDI or using a syringe or whatever. It'll all be in that Nightscout instance that you're hosting either on Heroku or T1PAL or any of the other services that let you host Nightscout. We think Nightscout rocks, but the brilliance of Nightscout wasn't the storage format of the data, but really it was a standardization of the programmatic API on top of the data. We use our own native format, and we actually create a Nightscout compatible API that lets Gluroo be the backend for lots of open source software. Anything that's built to talk that API will work with Gluroo. So this, unfortunately, as you know, Heroku's free tier is going away next month. And so you'll have to start paying for their hosting. So I recommend you either switch to T1PAL or start paying Heroku, or you can use Gluroo's Nightscout compatible API as a third alternative. This is sort of how we fit into the ecosystem, right? You can be, if you're using Nightscout in the middle there right now, you can just swap in the Gluroo backend, and things like Loop, Xstrip, Loop Follow, all of those things just work. In addition, we provide our own web-based UI, right? And you get access to all of the Gluroo goodness, all of its direct UI as well, right? Now, how does this work for DIY Loop? Let's talk more about that, which is something I'm sure you guys are interested in. So this is exactly how we integrate with DIY Loop. The app knows how to write into Nightscout. DIY Loop already knows how to write into Nightscout, so we give it Gluroo's version of Nightscout and everything works. So here's how you set it up. You can see we're just selecting an insulin delivery mechanism of DIY Loop. Now it created our Nightscout instance, so to speak. It's not really a new Nightscout instance, it's just our API. We copy and paste that URL, that host name over here. We make up the host name, you don't get to pick. Copy the API secret over, paste it in, log in, and you're all set up. Okay, now the way that it then works, here we're using DIY Loop on the right on an iPhone. Once we hit save and deliver and confirm with Face ID, you'll see it show up in Gluroo on the left in real time almost immediately. It's important to note that this isn't polling, this is not DIY Loop writing to Nightscout on Heroku and then Gluroo sometime seconds or minutes later asking for that data. DIY Loop is directly talking to Gluroo servers, and we're updating the status in real time. It's much faster than the alternative. And we've tested this backend that's compatible with Nightscout to work with Loop Follow. John has worked closely with us to make sure that that works well. I'm a big fan of Loop Follow, and this is what it looks like. If you know that you only need to follow from iOS, great. Note that there is no web UI to Nightscout on Gluroo though. It's just the backend. We have our own web UI, so you're not going to get exactly the same web-based interface, but it will support these different open source products. It works with John Fawcett's Sugar Pixel. It works with Nightwatch. We've had people internationally test it on Nightwatch and Nightguard. There's a couple of folks in France and Italy that are using it with the M5 stack IoT devices. And after seeing the demo a couple weeks ago, I did a quick proof of concept integration with voice triggering. So here we are logging a starburst.
Word, trigger a starburst for Jax.
And then it shows up in the Gluroo event log. Okay, and this just uses the API just like everything else that integrates with if this then that to do voice control for using Nightscout backend. Now, as I mentioned, we integrate with Omnipod 5 and the Omnipod 4 Dash system. We've used both of them personally. We've dog-fooded both of these integrations. The OP5 just came out, and it's worth noting that there's no manufacturer-supplied live remote monitoring solution for it. Their View app only works with the Dash and only runs on iOS. So as far as I know, right now, GluCrew is the only solution available to see what's happening on an Omnipod 5 patch pump from a parent or caregiver's phone. So here's a demo. Let's try to get it going.
On the right is GluCrew running on my son's Android phone connected to his patch pump. He's set the insulin delivery type to Omnipod 5, and I'm going to switch into the OP5 app running on that same phone and deliver a correction bolus. Insulet's app suggests just over half a unit. While that's happening, notice on the left I'm holding my iPhone also running GluCrew. My son, the cameraman, has all of his diabetes data, including supplies, meal announcements, photos, and more, synchronized across the phones of his entire GluCrew in real time, like a regular group messaging app. We jump ahead, and about 40 seconds after the bolus completes, GluCrew sends a notification to the iPhone and puts the insulin in the log on both devices, annotated with the time and his blood glucose of 155. The device status now has the updated insulin on board and shows OP5's automated versus limited mode and the battery level on his phone. GluCrew makes managing diabetes as easy as messaging.
So that's how it works with the OP5. So there's a couple of limitations. The big one for Omnipod 5 is that it only works for the insulin being bolused. So there's no carbs being logged. We can tell, we see all the insulin, whether it's on automatic bolus or a manual bolus, but there's no carbs logged, unfortunately. And it's an important limitation. We do have a way of working around that a little bit. So when we do see the insulin being delivered on the OP5, we add underneath an opportunity to log how many carbs we think it probably was based on your carb ratio, the CGM reading right now, and the insulin that we know is on board from our integration with the OP5. So we guesstimate somewhere in the vicinity of 75 grams and give you a bunch of choices and make it 2 taps to then log how many carbs you actually ate. You can, of course, enter more notes that it was 70 grams pizza or whatever, right? To answer Joanne's question, is insulin in talks with GluCrew for carbs? I would love you guys to encourage them to talk more with us. I have several connections there, and I think as GluCrew gains more audience, I think there's hope that we'll be able to get some of that working with a more official integration, but we don't have that yet. The second limitation with the OP5 is that it doesn't work with their PDM. You have to use your own compatible smartphone. The solution there isn't as satisfying. You do have to buy something. The good news is that something like this S10e is actually a nice small smartphone. It's a couple generations back, but it works great with GluCrew, works great with the OP5 app, and considering the expense of diabetes isn't that expensive all told. We bought a refurbed one like this and it works great. Now, notifications is another important area where GluCrew has innovated. So every time you see these messages going in the app, they're also coming as operating system level notifications. So here you can see a bunch of things that were going on. And in fact, every time you get one of these, we try to have some interesting and useful responses so that you don't even have to open GluCrew to respond or to take action, okay? Just by these in operating system notification responses and buttons. Now, our most important notifications are what we call reminders. This is an area that can confuse long timers as they start using GluCrew. They're looking for alerts. Okay, and we don't have alerts. Nobody likes alerts going off and interrupting them. I didn't like having to shut that alert off. That was an X-trip alert. Nobody likes interruptions. GluCrew aims to remind you about situations before it escalates into an alert. So we're trying to make a bunch of changes to the app to align the visuals and the language in the app with this vision for reminders, but I'll share a bit of how we think it works. Some of the language isn't quite up to date in the app that's available in production right now. So we don't have alerts, we have reminders. And I want to stress, this isn't just wordsmithing, right? There are some big differences. An alert is something that you dismiss, and that's not how GluCrew works. Reminders are actionable, contextual, situational things that you need to address the root cause of. And when you've addressed the root cause of, the reminder becomes no longer necessary and it'll go away on its own. So here we see on the left a high reminder in the app where GluCrew shows that insulin and exercise are ways to address a high, and the user logs an insulin dose and the reminder goes away. You see it disappear right there for both of the users in the GluCrew. All of the users will see it disappear. Okay? It wasn't an alert, it was a way of facilitating the logging of the corrective action. And we really want to minimize those interruptions. I've talked about this before. And the difference between that X-strip alert that you heard bothering me and GluCrew's alert is I'm not with my son. So even though he needed to eat a Starburst, as it were, he was a little bit low, I didn't get a GluCrew alert because I wasn't close to him. His phone alerted him. His phone reminded him. With GluCrew, we remind only one person at a time. And we only buzz others if the reminder isn't addressed in a timely way. So I never got the GluCrew alert because he had taken a Starburst and logged the Starburst. It means it doesn't need to bother me. Now, I use follow and X-strip alerts as double, triple backups. I'm in my office, which is why I heard the other alert. But GluCrew wasn't the thing that was bothering me because he took care of himself. GluCrew helps train you as a person who needs support or assistance, helps train that person to take care of themselves while still providing the supervision and oversight. So here we see Sweetie on the left with a blood glucose of 71, and she gets a new sensor reading of 67, which triggers a low reminder on her device. See the notification at the top of the screen. More importantly, notice that there was not a notification sent to my iPhone on the right. The reminder inside the app shows on the iPhone, but without sound and only if the app is open. Now, during the first phase of this reminder, anyone in the GluCrew can look at it, take action, but the in-app reminder lists only the things that are likely to be logged for low, in this case, the Starburst or juice. The device notification lets you log easily from outside the app. We can do it right there in that notification. But here we pretend that Sweetie didn't notice and we just wait. After 3 minutes, and I speed it up to a minute in this demo, my iPhone on the right gets that notification, there it is, and it buzzes for the reminder. And then from my iPhone, I could easily record the corrective action using one of those action menus on the iOS notification. That makes a reminder disappear from all the devices. I hope that makes sense. It's a fundamental difference in the way that this works. Now, you get lots of control around notifications. The operating system supports a ton. Android in particular, you can go crazy customizing this. You can control which reminders you get from your regular settings, as well as some additional controls inside GluCrew itself. Again, reminders are not just based on sensor value. Okay, this is confusing to folks. You might get a low alert because you're 90, going low, haven't recorded food, and just recorded an insulin bolus, and it looks like you need to be reminded that, hey, you could have a Starburst to avoid going low. And hopefully that then prevents you from ever hearing the Dexcom alert. Okay, we do require that you continue using the manufacturer supplied alerting system. And this is a work in progress. We continue to refine this from feedback from the community and from our own dog fooding and so forth. The one place where we do have an extension of regular alerts is for phone call alerts. This is a very popular SugarMate feature, and we do it too. You can specify a landline or whatever phone number you want to be a third level of escalation of an alert or a reminder, right? Now, a whole bunch of GluCrew's functionality is in the drop-down status tabs, and those look like this here. There's 4 tabs. Oops, let's go back. There's 4 tabs here. The first, I think it's going to start. I think there's a video here. No, well, here's 3 of the tabs. Let's not worry about that. This is more fun to look at, bigger and more up to date. So on the leftmost tab shows your insulin on board, as well as a computation of just the algebra of insulin and carbs, showing you where we think you'll land upon completion. We've seen the device tab a little bit, so I've skipped that one. In the middle is the chart tab, and shows you your blood glucose levels as recorded by your CGM, with markers annotating grams of carbs or insulin boluses or whatever. If you're using DIY Loop, you'll see like your basal levels shown on the bottom, and you'll see auto boluses as varying size dots along the very top x-axis. There's a share button in there to make it really easy to share your chart with other people on Facebook or wherever you want to share, and so forth. And at the far right is a simple set of tiles for statistics. In the fullness of time, these will be customizable and so forth. But right now, this is the set that we make available. Okay. The menu also appears in the tray. That 5th sort of tab is the horizontal hamburger, what we call in the trade the hamburger menu. And you can open the menu also by tapping the vertical dots menu just above the hamburger menu, where my smeared out face appears up there, and my blurred face appears. Now the 3rd row of this menu tab gives you controls for tracking your prescription. I already talked a little bit before about how you can, how GluCrew uses your carb ratio to communicate, to let you estimate how many carbs you had for a given bolus. It's also a useful way of communicating with your endocrinologist and otherwise. So here is what recording your prescription looks like. You can day part your day to record different segments of the day where you have different carb ratios, targets, or insulin sensitivity factors. You just kind of directly manipulate in the table underneath. You can remove rows, add rows, whatever. And when you're all done making your changes, you can back out of that, and there we go. And it'll make sure that you want to save it. And then it provides a summary of the changes to the log so that you can remember what day it was that you updated your carb ratio or so forth. GluCrew does work, and this answers the most recent question, which is we work with care providers outside of your core family. Can't say we're marketing GluCrew at all. We're not yet commercially available, but we are looking for testers and endocrinologists, and especially pediatric endocrinologists, diabetes coaches, anybody that helps support people with diabetes. We're definitely interested in this. So the way that looks, this is what I call the school nurse use case. I know some of you, God bless you, support multiple kids with diabetes. If you have multiple loved ones or people you're supporting as a school nurse that hopefully you sort of at least like, you can switch among 6 or 8 of them even by just long pressing the picture of the person with diabetes in the top and then switching to somebody else. It actually kind of works like Facebook's new persona switcher, but we did this even before they did. And that's how you switch among different people who have diabetes. And then all the state just updates. If you want to share with your licensed care provider, you can grab a link and paste it into, you can paste that into your, hey, Russ, make sure you're muted. And you can paste that into your patient care portal so that they can have access to your diabetes data. And they'll be able to look at a web application that looks something like this, right? It's a list of all of their patients, in this case, just 2, right? And they have access to your ambulatory glucose profile. These are all charts that our data scientists put together. Walker put these together. They're the same kind of thing that they'd look at if they were looking at Clarity or whatever. So there's like a percentiles chart on the bottom. Here's like an hourly day of week chart for the last 7 days. The bottom one is a heat map. And the heat map's an interesting one. Walker made this, and I have his permission to share that it's also his data. You can see here, the only time he struggles with highs is Friday and Saturday night. But I'm sure he's having fun. So I bet it's worth it. The web app is mostly for folks outside of your core GluCrew, but there is a status chart view that I initially built for my family to replace the Nightscout web view that we used to use. This old LG Android phone sits in our main bathroom, and it just is constantly displaying that page, showing his current number and his last days of readings. So again, this is like trying to replace the Nightscout web UI, so you don't need the Nightscout web UI anymore. Gluroo is pretty thoroughly internationalized. And the question that Samantha asked, I'll answer that real quick. The others can see the data. Yeah, you can control you can like let school nurses only see from 8:30 to 5 on Monday through Friday. That currently is a database only feature, but we'll be putting a user interface on it shortly. So right now you have to write in the help and we can set it up. But frankly, once somebody writes in the help and asks to do that, I'm just going to implement the feature. It'll just take me an hour or so. We're fully internationalized. We have folks from over a dozen countries using Gluroo already. We support these 10 languages. I guess technically 11 because of the translator pseudo language. But right now localization is done via machine translation. So it's not great. If you read the translation for the word right, sometimes it's translated to mean correct in another language when it's meant to be like the opposite of left. So there are problems that we need to fix there, and we're working out a way to enable the users in a country to help contribute proper translations for the app. And we actually have a couple of people working directly on improving the Hindi translations to make the app easier to use in India. Now, engagement is an important thing for any app that's end user facing. We, in general, though, aim to have Gluroo maximize value without you spending a lot of time in the app. We do send emails to remind you about your blood glucose performance, so you can compare this prior week to the prior week and see how you're progressing. And for kids, you know, I know we're having Happy Bob on in a couple weeks. Happy Bob's an awesome app that's very focused on this kind of gamification, and it is super fun. It does a good job with that. Here is that menu again. That top right is a trophy case and a challenges screen. And if we look inside that, you can earn awards in Gluroo for various kinds of successes, for like making a lot of meal announcements or intervening with a snap. These are proven behavioral techniques to keep participation in the treatment high. And more than once, my son has exclaimed, "Hey, Dad, I got another trophy." Right? So it at least sort of works with him, right? He enjoys these. And you get fireworks when the trophies are given out and so forth. We've also got some exciting upcoming work in what we're calling challenge crews. You'll see more about that in the app over the next month or two. That's all part of a design to better support a broader mission around all kinds of diabetes and general health. For a younger adult who has type 1, or maybe an adult that's pre-diabetic, they may not have the same support crew as a younger child. So challenges are a way to engage a broader, their peers who maybe they collaborate with or talk to about their health challenges. So as part of challenge crews, we're working on allowing calorie tracking. If you don't take insulin, then maybe tracking calories is the thing that would be useful for you. And we're letting Gluroo do that for you. I think a UPC and nutrition database, and the quality of that database is even more important for type 2s and prediabetes and for health and so forth. My screen is not happy. There we go. We're working on Health Kit integration. We've got a prototype of that. I've got one user helping me make that work well. Google Fit's working, a work in progress as well. And just ordered my Pixel Watch, and we're going to start making it work well with Pixel Watches and Apple Watches. Here's a chart of our users, groups, and messages over time. The main reason for pointing this out is, hey, the two marketing pushes we've done were the two bumps you see here in late November, early December. There's a big step function up of users and groups, mostly just not so much in messages, because we were mostly just like waitlisting folks then. And then more recently in the mid-September push, we've seen a big takeoff, especially in France and Italy, have been massive amounts of new users. I love the idea of tying the rewards into allowance, so I'm all for it. Let's see. So marketing works, and then it's also important to note, and we like showing hockey stick curves in Silicon Valley whenever we tell people that we're hiring. So this is the requisite hockey stick curve of growth, coupled with the message that we are hiring. Would love to have more engineers on the team. Would love to have a senior healthcare professional, go-to-market specialist. We already have millions of sensor readings, over 100,000 messages in the system. It's an exciting time. So now I will take questions. And I think I'll go in reverse order of chat, and then people, after I pick and choose some, people can like chime in and unmute themselves and ask more questions. I'm gonna make this chat window bigger so I can read backwards, and I'll try to repeat the question that I'm answering as I ask these. Okay, so Joanne, you asked, how long can you keep it free? We intend to keep the end user facing product free indefinitely. I have been very fortunate in my career, and I've been bootstrapping this product. I've turned down investment money, but have been bootstrapping to this point, and believe that we have other go-to-market strategies that won't require a premium payment model of any sort. At least there'll be all the features, all the meaningful features will be free indefinitely. We strongly hope. Marketing the pediatric. So there was a question, Samantha, you asked, this lets Loop write to GR. I assume that means Gluroo, but Gluroo is not writing back to Loop, correct? Gluroo is, there's no writing back to Loop, right? Loop just pulls the Nightscout database. If you're asking, for instance, when we wouldn't want to necessarily tell we treated a low, I'm not sure about the second part of the question, but we don't, for example, support remote bolusing or things like that, right? That's something I can't rule out in the future, but it's quite sensitive. Technically, we're not the ones doing it. It's Loop DIY doing it. But right now, we don't have a way in Gluroo to specify a different activity mode or something like that for Loop to read in. But it's important to understand that Gluroo isn't writing anywhere. Loop is just reading from Gluroo as if something else wrote in the Nightscout, but it's not really Nightscout, right? Let's see. Joanne, do you want to call attention to any of the other questions that came up that I might have missed?
No, I actually think you've done an amazing presentation. When you get to listen to it, you actually learn a lot. And I'm so sorry your son has diabetes, but as we've been saying in the background, you're the perfect person to be on this. So thank you very much for what you've done. Just a curiosity, this seems a brilliant thing for teens as they start to learn how to take care of themselves, but with monitoring from the parents. Is there any way that you offer little workshops, or what's the onboarding to learn this system? As you say it sounds simple, and then I go away going, what's first? What do I do next?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my background is one where, like, I believe in scalable onboarding, right? When we built Gmail and released it on April Fool's Day in 2004, it wasn't like you signed up on a Calendly link to figure out how to use Gmail. We made the product good enough that you were supposed to be able to figure it out by using the product and so forth. And that's the same model for Gluroo. We do anticipate onboarding coaches, endocrinologists, and so forth, helping them understand. And that's kind of more the sort of enterprise sales model where you try to convince some of the people that influence broader swaths of folks. But we're hoping that it's self-explanatory, and we're hoping that we don't need to onboard. That said, over the last 2 years, I've onboarded 24 or so families and shown them how it works and so forth. So we have a playbook for doing that, but we're hoping it's not necessary. We're hoping that videos like this that are made available indefinitely online will replace the need to do anything like that.
We also tend to do open mic nights on specific topics. So if we start to see that people want to try this, we just may ask you to come back and spend an hour stepping through
Yeah,
those two
absolutely.
things. And
No,
then
I'm happy to, we have contemplated but have not yet bitten the bullet on doing some, office hours kinds of things where, somebody from the company is on a VC call and people can come in. We do have a Facebook group that we encourage you to join, where we have about 50 members in there now. We have a lot more users than that, but 50 people have clicked on the link to join that Facebook group. And they sometimes are answering each other's questions now. So that was the goal there, is to not be the limiting factor in communicating with them.
well, if anyone has any questions, you can certainly unmute. I think this has just been an extraordinary demonstration. Really feels like you've thought this through, and to have come out with this in 6 months from your beginning diagnosis for your son is pretty astounding.
Well, yeah, thank you. I assure you, though, the version at 6 months was not as full featured. So the version at 6 months was group messaging that had a CGM sensor integration so that we could see the sensor there. And it was basically group messaging while understanding if you typed some number and then the letter G, we knew that it was a grams of carbs announcement, and we pulled up a bolus calculator. We don't, by the way, have a bolus calculator anymore because we want to remain 510K exempt for when we are commercially available. So we've taken that functionality out. And it was only available in the very early prototypes that only my family was dog fooding because of the sensitivities around that.
Okay, I'm going to challenge everyone on this Zoom. If there's a feature you saw that you think is absolutely outstanding, just put it in chat. And I'll tell you, I love the prescription, and that's what we've been buzzing about, because and the Dexcom integration is amazing. I like to see IOB, and there it was. It was easy. I saw it. If anyone else is seeing something that they thought was just something I want to see in an app, and there it is, and thank you, throw it in the chat, and that way I can print up this chat for Greg later on, and you can see what your hit is on it. But do you have any questions for this group of people?
Do I? I would love more questions from the audience. Feel free to unmute.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, Tina.
Sometimes we are really good about tracking what we do, putting all our, for example, my son had pizza and cookies for dinner, and he's needed to have a couple of, carbs and then some added fat protein unit, and sometimes we log the carbs that we give him when, to catch, and sometimes we don't. Would not logging them in Gluroo be a tripping point for anything?
Well, Gluroo's reminders, if you're using Gluroo's reminding functionality, that stuff works best if it has a complete log. Because if you, for example, just log carbs and don't log insulin, you're going to get a reminder saying, hey, did you forget to do an insulin bolus, because those carbs are going to make you go high. And vice versa. If you only log the boluses without the carb announcement, it's going to remind you, hey, you're going to need some sugar to counter the insulin bolus that you've got on board, right? So in an ideal world, you're logging both. Now, the Loop integration, anything that uses the Nightscout backend, when you're writing that stuff into the Nightscout backend, it gets, we are the Nightscout backend, so we'd get all of that information, so you don't have to double log. The places where it falls short are, right now we don't have a T-Slim integration. We'd love to work with Tandem and do that integration too. They are just starting to do bolusing from a personal smartphone, and their T-Connect app is something I'm looking at and trying to understand, but we've never used the app, and I have every belief I could make something work. Somebody's got an old one that they want to send us for me to figure it out. I'm happy to try that too. And then OP5. The OP4, we get both carbs and insulin, but it's not looping. And so, the standard of care really with the first world healthcare system, and hopefully in the not too distant future, the entire world healthcare system, really should be a looping pump with a CGM in real time. And so in that world, with the OP5 right now, our integration, because we don't have insulin's participation right now, it's insulin only.
So if you say treat with, or sorry, if it tells you you are going to need 5 grams and you have the 5 grams, but you don't put it in, will over time, will it change to,
it will over time, because over time it'll take 15 minutes or so for the CGM to start registering. But once it sees the trajectory of the CGM change course and start going up, then that will start overriding the reminder and say, oh, it looks like you're going to be stable after all. But the preferred best practice is log the starburst, and then the reminder goes away immediately, and you won't see it again. The time you'll see it again is if it sees the CGM start going up and then round trip back down. Immediately, it will re-bring that reminder up. You didn't have enough starburst, right? Okay. So it's very, I'm proud of the intelligence around that stuff, but it only works if you log everything. It doesn't work great if you don't. And that's an area of like active work, because like the reality is not everybody logs everything. I should say another part of the remote functionality that's really, really awesome, and they're all inspired. I mean, again, the dog fooding, us testing it is where we was inspired a bunch of these things. How many of you, and most of you are not showing your faces, but you know, the 3 of you I can see, raise your hand. How many of you have had your kid go to bed and not plug in the damn phone? Right. So if it's after 10 or his phone is less than 20% and not plugged in, you get an alert on your phone saying, hey, phone's not plugged in. You might want to go check on it, right? So that's another alert that we give no matter what your integration is, right? We just say, hey, the phone's low battery and not plugged in. We also do you know, if the pump is reporting a failure of some sort, that immediately gets propagated. Like it's not just insulin on the OP5, on DIY Loop and you know, whatever mode you're in. If you're in an activity mode on DIY Loop, we show a little badge over top of the person's face and stuff like that. So there's a lot of remote telemetry on DIY Loop, and for OP5, we show a pump fail message. We show the battery level. We show whether the phone is plugged in or not. We provide reminders if it's not plugged in and low battery and stuff like that.
Okay, so yeah, a message from Samantha. Can you change the IOB timeframe? I'm guessing you mean a duration of insulin, or is that a set amount?
Yeah. So right now it is a set amount in terms of the duration of action, but it's a set amount for each of the kinds of insulin, and you can choose which insulin you're using. So if you say you're using Humalog, it's 3.5 hours right now. It's either 3.5 or 4. I keep going back and forth. We need to do a better statistical analysis now that we have more people. That's something our data scientists will work on. But the curve for Novolog might be a little bit different, right? But we don't right now let you have flexibility in changing the duration of action off of that.
So part of my questioning that was our transition from MDI to pumping and then pumping to looping. That duration of insulin is actually a real thing. And yet in the endo's office, they tell you 2 hours. So being only a year into this, you know, 2 hours was like drilled into my head for the first 6 months. And then I come to Loop and find out about this tail that kind of wags its head around sometimes. So I see Gluroo as being a great bridge from MDI or just standard pumping to a smart system, honestly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's, you know, a big part of what we were doing was doing that transition. And I would say in the fullness of time, the plan is that we would learn on a per user, per person with diabetes basis what those parameters look like, in the same way that the OP5 system tries to be adaptive to the person with diabetes. So that's the end game. We're not there yet right now. We're walking before we run, and you know, it's just a fixed number right now.
No, I think this is fantastic. Thank you, Greg, for creating this. It's,
yeah, you bet.
You know, yeah, it's awesome.
Try it. Spread the word.
I have a great interest in some of the other pumps around and algorithms. So are you, it's not like you haven't been busy, but have you talked to CAM APS, Diaboloop, and what I'm seeing a lot in the Australian system, and you were there for a while, is the Ypsomed pumps that they're using there quite a bit. Or do you have that spread yet? Because it would be fun to go to the FDA and say, hey, come on, move on some of these.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to really have an interchange format that's approved by the FDA, maybe modeled off of the Nightscout API, where you can just have multiple people. I mean, look, as a technologist, that's the way we do things. We build APIs, and you can plug and play. And there's been great progress in the plug and play between the BLE, CGM sensors and pumps. We'll see if it comes to fruition, but at least in principle, there's this notion of the interoperable CGM and the interoperable pump. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that work over a while. In the short term, as a small team, we have to focus on the pump manufacturers that talk to us and the ones that people are using, right? Those aren't always overlapping, intersecting things. So I've gone to great lengths to make things work for the therapies that my family has chosen to use, and we've been using pretty mainstream therapies. So that's why that set of things is supported pretty well. Would love to have a better OP5 integration. I would love to have the T-Slim supported. Those are big ones. Obviously, there's a lot of people on Medtronic pumps. I'd be thrilled to work with them as well. We've got the Medtronic CGM is on our list of integrations to do. We think we know how to do it. It's just a matter of implementation. We've only had that requested once so far, though. So at the point when there's a lot of people asking for it, we'll build that in too.
Okay, and do you think with Tandem, you just will run up against Sugarmate and they own it? Really, that'd be
yeah, anything's possible. I mean, I think that'd be short-sighted given that the world still has more Android users than iOS users, and Sugarmate really doesn't run on Android at all. I mean, okay. I'm a fan of Sugarmate. We did use it early on, and I think that it does a good job for what it's trying to do. So sure, it's possible. I think it's a great product. I just wish it worked on Android 2, and maybe they were trying to make it work on Android 2. Well, but at the same time, like I think giving people choice is part of the name of the game.
Absolutely. I have no problem posting this video on the Tandem users group. So it comes from customers, and
yeah, totally
develops the demand. So I just want to thank you. I know we've worked on this for a while, and thank you for your patience. I think this is extraordinary. I see who are the people that are saying this would help. And that's all we need is reduce the burden, make it easy, and actually make it fun for the kids to learn. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you guys all for showing up. And Joanne, it sounds like you'll be able to share with me the chat later on so that I have a record of all these great questions so I can share with the whole team.
You bet. Thank you so much.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks.
Okay.
Nice seeing you all.
Thanks everybody, and thanks family and friends who showed up to support me.
Thank you, family.
Appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.